Okay, so we're going to talk about the situation with Greenland and Trump, the Trump administration's threats concerning Greenland. Now, I'm Norwegian, if you didn't know, and so Greenland is very significant in our identity. Anyone who knows a little bit of history will understand why. And of course, if you are Danish, you will consider Denmark as part of, I can't remember the term, but the Kingdom of Denmark. And just to get everything tidied up concerning the status of Greenland, in simple terms, Greenland has the right to, through referendum, achieve full independence if they so desire. So it's not a colony. Greenland is not a colony, even though the administration in the US, they like to say that. But I don't know if they just don't, if they're just being ignorant, or if they say that because to further their cause. So I have been looking into, no, let's be honest, I have been watching YouTube videos about the very, I will say, unlikely, hopefully, scenario where there's actually a military conflict concerning Greenland between some NATO countries and the USA. And I am not an expert on the military stuff, but so I'll just give you the conclusions concerning that. But before we do that, I think it's important to try to understand why the administration in the USA are saying so very clearly that they need Greenland to become part of the USA. And I think I've been wrong in the past on that, because I've said that it's because of the resources. And that is certainly part of the reason, but it doesn't explain what we're seeing now. And I think that this is largely actually ideological. Now, let's take the claim first that the USA needs to have Greenland because they need to keep Russia and China out of Arctic waters. You can only say that with a straight face if you don't know geography. You already have a massive presence in Arctic waters from Russia. And they also have something called submarines. And I actually don't know if these people saying these things, that they know that the Arctic, it's not a continent, it's just ice. It's an ocean. So you can, a submarine can go under the ice, right? It's not true that you have a large presence of Chinese and Russian ships in the waters around Greenland. That is not true, even though they say that. So also we have to add to this that both Denmark and Greenland, they are welcoming even larger American military presence on Greenland. They have been very clear on that. So the military aspect is not, it's not, that's not the reason. What about the resources, minerals and oil? I think that's part of the reason, but it's not easily accessible on Greenland. And it's I believe you already have companies. They're American companies. They have been doing some research, and they're not certain if it's worth the investment, drilling and all of that. So I don't think that's the reason, actually. You have similar resources that are accessible to the USA in other areas where you don't have this resistance. The resistance concerning Greenland is mostly because it's a wilderness and it needs to be protected. So what is the reason? Well, they kind of said it straight out, now recently. Trump, he likes to play with words, and he called it the Dunrow Doctrine. It comes from the Monroe Doctrine. And I'll read. I was lazy. I'll just use Wikipedia on this one. The Monroe Doctrine was outlined in James Monroe's December 1823 State of the Union address. It opposed European intervention in the Americas and warned foreign powers that the United States would not tolerate colonization of its neighbors. So it is an attitude where that kind of dictates that the USA must dominate the Americas. And we saw this with Venezuela. Now, of course, it was run by a criminal, obviously. So it's very different, of course. And I think that the Venezuelan people will be much better off now that this has happened. But it's kind of from the USA, comes from the same ideological standpoint as what we're seeing with Greenland. We have to add to this. And by the way, it was Donald Trump who called it the Dunrow Doctrine. So that's a play with words. His name, of course, Donald, and then Monroe. So that's the Dunrow Doctrine. And on that list, it says here, Trump's efforts to rename the Gulf of Mexico, acquire Canada, but the Panama Canal and Greenland, as well as the military intervention in Venezuela. So you have that, but also you have another attitude that I have seen. We're going to see it. Maybe it's already in the chat here. An attitude that the USA is the greatest country on the planet. Very often this is kind of connected to Christian nationalism, and also the idea that might is right. So the USA being such a military superpower then implies that what they take is theirs because might is right. And we're seeing a little comment here. I don't know if it's ironic. Why would the EU attack its master? So this is the kind of attitude that we are seeing, and privately I've been saying that all of this talk, it's mostly Donald Trump talking to his voters, potential voters, and also strengthening the MAGA base. That's what I think it is, but it's something more, and I'm understanding this now. It's more. It is more than that. It comes from an ideological standpoint. And we have a comment here. You go on about the EU being bad. Yes, because the EU is bad. Any power taken from them is good. No, I don't know. You need to apply some thinking there and try again. So now, okay. We have another comment. Didn't you like Trump at one point? Well, I think Trump was useful in his first term. I said so, and I stand by that. And I'm still not decided concerning what would have been. Would the situation in Europe concerning Ukraine have been worse with the alternative with this election? I don't know. I tend to think so, but that doesn't mean that I like Trump. You need to be realistic about these things. So, um, I have been looking at, as I said, the hopefully very unlikely scenario where the USA uses military power to take Greenland. Now, that will destroy NATO. Now, NATO might rebuild itself, but it will no longer be a military superpower. And we can discuss whether that is good or bad for the world. It's certainly bad for the USA. Now, you need to realize that the USA is dependent on its military bases in Europe, and those would obviously be gone. What would also be gone would be all these deals that have been made now, where basically supporting the military support of military material to Ukraine. It's a lot of that is being bought from American weapons manufacturers, and those deals would be cancelled, of course. The deals where there is like a Finnish, what is it, a big, well, a big warship basically being built now. I think that would obviously be cancelled as well. So this would leave the USA quite isolated. They would have no military presence in Europe anymore. And you might say that's a good thing if you have the isolationist mindset, but military speaking, it's a very bad thing. So I don't think that the USA will invade Greenland. I think this is, and I really hope I'm wrong, but I think it's a playing tough before negotiations kind of Trump tactic we're seeing here. But I don't know what they're going to negotiate about, because they were in agreement before this started. And at the most important idea here, the most important thing to grasp is that if the USA takes another country like that, an allied country, you need to understand, if you support that, you need to understand, you need to think a little bit about what that means. Because and people will say, we don't need NATO, we don't need Europe. Well, you kind of do, you see. You kind of do. Financially, it would be a disaster for the USA. The USA isolated would be the beginning of the end for the USA. Now, the USA doesn't really have many friends, except Europe, the other NATO countries. Would they turn to China for trade? I don't think so. Would they turn to Russia for trade? That is, I find it unlikely, because even though the current administration might do that, the next one will probably not. So it would be very short term. So where do they go? South America? I don't think so. This would isolate the USA financially and in trade. So, yeah, you might say that, well, that's good, but long term, it's actually very bad. So, but let's talk a little bit about the hopefully unlikely scenario where the USA invades Greenland. So I think we all understand that the USA could cover Greenland in bombs in 24 hours. And it's like you wouldn't have military from the other NATO countries sitting there waiting for that. They would probably not be there when that happens. So yes, the USA could cover Greenland in bombs and they could just move in very quickly. And they could establish themselves in some of the harbors there. And they could set up depots, DEPOTS, and prepare for a extended stay in Greenland. Now, when I'm saying in Greenland, it's not going to be inland. It's all going to be along the coast, because Greenland is a glacier, basically. It's covered in ice and snow. The temperatures will punish you and kill you. And I don't think that people realize the harsh conditions on Greenland. You don't really have anything there. You don't have fuel. It's like you don't have any forests there. There is no natural way to stay warm. So it is a very demanding environment. So let's say the USA, they move in and they establish themselves there. That could be the end of it. If the NATO countries decides that, okay, we will punish the USA with, through financial means and through trade and boycott and so on, that could be the end of it. And to kind of try to slowly strangle the USA through that. But it's interesting to look at what if that was not the end of it. What if they decided to move in, so the NATO countries, and do war? To move in and start killing people, basically. Move in and start destroying the military bases. And if we look at the numbers, it's very clear that the USA would be vastly outnumbered. And this might come as a surprise to people, but you see, a normal soldier is of no good use in Greenland. You have to have special training. And we're not talking about being trained for 2 months in the winter. No, that won't do it. You also need to understand, like, a war like this could go on for quite a few years, actually. And we're talking about slowly strangling and making life difficult for the Americans based on Greenland, to such an extent that they would leave eventually. Now, I looked at the numbers. You can find that yourself. Maybe not, it's difficult. Maybe if you are from the USA, the YouTube algorithm will favor what you want to hear. But if you add all the soldiers trained in the USA that are trained in Arctic survival, and you compare that to all the soldiers that from the numbers I looked at was just Norway, Sweden, and Finland, and the special forces from Denmark. They use Greenland as their playground, basically. So if you just add those, they vastly outnumber the American ones. But numbers is not everything, and I don't think the numbers are that essential in an environment like Greenland. It's more the ability to survive long term. And I don't think the American soldiers, except some a very few of them, have that ability. And I know, oh, I'm unsubscribing. You hate the USA. I don't fucking care. Do what you want. But this is the reality of things. Um, Even someone like me, I'm more than 50 years old, and I'm still on duty. They could call me into the military for 2 more years, actually. Now, um, out of all of these soldiers, in my mind, I might be wrong here, but out of all these soldiers that we're talking about, I think the Finnish are the best on this. They they fought Russia in the snow. And I think that people in the USA maybe do not understand the severity of the situation if you have Finnish, a coalition of Finnish, Swedish, and Norwegian special forces, Arctic special forces, being dropped in the inland in Greenland, and they start making life difficult for the American soldiers there. I don't think that people understand the severity of that situation. Um, it would be such a horrible thing. It would be such a horrible thing. I think that the Americans on Greenland would suffer to such an extent that the opinion in the USA would move towards, let's pull our forces out of Greenland, let's try to make a deal with the Europeans. Now, I haven't mentioned the Canadians here. I don't know what they will do, what they would do if such an unlikely scenario would actually become reality, because they have this long border towards the USA. Maybe they will choose to stay neutral, maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, well, we have a comment there. Only 55,000 people live in Greenland. It's not a battle. Well, it's not. Those are not the people who would do the fighting, you see. Uh, no. So this will end horribly for the USA, and I really hope that they don't do this. Now, as I said, if I had to choose, no, sorry, if I had to bet, I would say that in such an unlikely scenario that USA moves in military, they grab Greenland, I tend towards betting on the rest of the NATO countries not doing anything military in a military sense. I don't think they will move in. I think it will be the USA will be punished in other ways. I think, but I'm almost. I don't know. Actually, I don't know. So again, I didn't mention the Canadian military much here, but they obviously have the skills in Arctic warfare, because of it's high up north. So I don't know, because they might choose to stay neutral. Maybe not. I honestly don't know. I don't know so much about Canadian politics, actually, but I do know quite a lot about Finnish, Swedish, Danish, and Norwegian politics and the attitude here towards this. You would be fighting the people. Maybe you've seen this video clip. The same people that have been aiding the USA, in all of their oil wars, the elite soldiers raise their guns and they call to Valhalla before they go to battle. Those guys, yeah, good luck with that. So we will get some trolls here in the chat, and I'll give you a minute or so because I will be nasty today. I will have no mercy today because I don't feel like having any mercy today. So I'm going to scar your soul if you've been like in a certain way here in the chat. So let's see here. Yeah, Uval says, get ready for the fight. Yeah, well, obviously I'm too old, but and also I'm obviously not an elite soldier. They're not going to send like a 19-year-old over there. Well, maybe if they have joined the elite forces, but I think, no, not 19. It takes no, obviously not a 19-year-old because it takes a while to become an Arctic elite soldier. Let's see here. I'll just scroll up. Oh, lots of comments. Canadian Spider-Man says, I'd like to go camping in Greenland. Well, actually, it's what Norwegians tend to do. Maybe not only Norwegians, but maybe Danish people too. To go cross-country skiing across Greenland. That's kind of you do that before to prove yourself. That's a thing, actually. It's not so easy. Let's see here. Oh, I don't think there are that many trolls here, actually. Okay. Victory over oppression says, not about security, it's about resources. Yeah, that's what maybe that is one of the reasons as well. But as you're saying here, we're already allies with the nations that are the most well-equipped and qualified to defend Greenland against Russia. Yes, you're absolutely right. And it's just that I've heard that was last year on the TV, actually. I think geologist, I don't know, someone said that it's actually not that easy to access it. So maybe the reason is at least also ideological. And Ian says the mineral reserves are hard to reach because of the ice. Yeah. Yeah, Freedom Grower says we can just take whatever we want with no consequence. That's new narrative. BS. Yeah, it's a dangerous way, a very foolish way to think. Greenland in Brave New World is part of the North American bloc. I suppose you know that, Bjorn. Well, it's actually not, but geologically it is. Geographically, it's not. Let's see. Someone says that the U.S. Army is right now encircling the island of Cuba for airstrikes. Are they? I haven't. That's news to me. Some comments we have responded to. Let's see here. Well, yeah, we don't really have that many. trolls here, actually. Saur says unlikely, it's likely. Yeah, it's interesting. I I'm like 52% on the side of the USA will not go in there with their military forces and to invade. But that might change tomorrow, you know. Yeah, Victor over oppression says very correctly here. I'll pin that comment because the US will not be able to sustain on the ground in Greenland. I researched it. We don't have what it takes, not the training nor the equipment. Yes. Some of the problems here is actually, it can be mended, but it takes a little while because the equipment you have to use to cross the inland is in the US Army is not suited for those temperatures. Like, for instance, if you have rubber or plastic in any of the I'm not technically I don't know, but the video I saw about that was actually when you have any rubber or plastic in your equipment, it won't work because it freezes and it breaks. So let's see here. Kat says, I said no, and I stand by that. Never Trumper here. I knew who he was from before. Let's see here. KP Eden says America needs to stop being the world police. And this Perry says Europe needs US more than US needs Europe. Well, one part of that is economics. Another part, and then I would say no, Europe doesn't really need the USA. When it comes to the military, yes, I would say, yeah, you are right. Yeah, America does have, someone's writing here, America does have experience the last 5 years training with Norway, Sweden, and Finland in Arctic warfare. Yes, they do that every year. Part of the reason is to provoke Russia. But that's not the same as someone who's been doing this for a few years as their job. It is not the same. John Bond Zombie, thank you for that. Thank you for that. Let's see, I'll have to scroll down there. Lots of opinions here. Yeah, what is the temperature in Greenland now? Let's find out. Let's find out. Let's see. It's actually quite warm, but that's by the coast, I believe. That is by the coast. No, I was wrong. No, it's no, it's -16 in our suite, and it's it's quite cold. -16, -8 in Nuuk. It's only -2. Yeah, so, but that could change tomorrow, you know. But basically, Greenland is not green; it's covered in ice, and yeah, so it's not. It's a very harsh environment. It's obvious, right? Victor over oppression says we have very small numbers who train in such conditions. The NATO nations who are experts far exceed our numbers in troops. We are far behind in experienced numbers and winterized equipment. Yes, that is true, but it's not so strange when you think about it, because the military in Sweden, Finland, and Norway, if and we have to add the English men, uh, because they are also here training on a regular basis because of the collaboration between maybe the other Scandinavian countries as well, but at least Norway and the UK, they've had this long-term collaboration. We train the English soldiers here. So that's what we do. And I can remember from when I was like, I was not in the military, by the way. I have to make that clear, because they had too many people that year, and I didn't really want to go. But I remember we were talking about when we were like 17, 18 years old, oh, maybe we will be sent up to Grense Jakobselv, which is a place that's rumored to be very cold, and that's where you are watching across the border to Russia. So that's kind of what you do when you're a recruit to the military, and they train you in harsh winter conditions. So another aspect to this that needs to be mentioned is that I don't know who gives Trump advice concerning Greenland, but they are fools, because taking Greenland, can anyone guess what Russia would do then? Any guesses? And meanwhile, I'll just answer this question. Do the US and Scandinavian soldiers not have a good relationship with each other? I think they do, yeah. So, yeah, what will they do? What will Russia do if the USA would take Greenland? Yeah, look at the map, I think they would take Svalbard. And Russia already has access to Svalbard because of the agreements concerning those waters between Norway and Russia. Now, I don't know the status of those agreements now because of the war in Ukraine, but there is a small mining town on Svalbard, a Russian mining town on Svalbard. But they would probably take Svalbard. Why wouldn't they? To balance out the presence in the Arctic waters. Yeah. Jeffrey doesn't agree. That's fine, But I think yes, the US do have elite Arctic soldiers, but you have to look at the numbers. It's not that many of them. And before you go on Google to find the numbers, it's like there is a difference. There is a difference. So, yeah, well, there are other people who know more about this than I do, obviously. I just wanted to say a few words about this because I think it's interesting, but also it is we shouldn't that we have gotten to this is quite insane. I did not expect this when A few years back, I did not expect this, but I never claimed to be an expert on American politics, of course. Um, but it's not a good situation, and it's so unnecessary. And they are lying when they are saying in the U.S. administration now that they need Greenland. They are lying. They don't need Greenland. It's good to have military presence of the USA on Greenland. I think that's a good thing, and they already have that, and they could expand that as well. But this is not about that. As I said, I think it's mainly ideological and also about the resources, but mainly ideological. Yeah, Jeffrey, I think you're right. Invading Greenland is easy. Yeah, yeah, but they wouldn't be waiting there for that to happen. They would not be there. It's what happens after that would be not so easy. As I've explained already. Yeah, who has dominance in South Pole? So the Antarctic waters. That's a very different situation because it's not politically or military in a military sense. It's not that important. I think, at least not now. Norway has a colony there with a population of penguins. But and other countries do as well. But it's mostly research and stuff like that. Yeah. So yeah, it's like it's easy to invade Greenland for a country like the USA, but staying there would be very painful. Very painful. Mike Rock is asking, what's your opinion on billionaire business owners expressing interest in purchasing large areas of Greenland to preserve the environment? Well, if they were honest about that, I think that's a good thing, but I don't think that they are necessarily honest about that. And if an area is purchased like that, well, they could change their mind then and do something else with it. Yeah. So that's my take on this, I think. And I think that if something happens, I think like dramatic, I think it will happen within a couple of months, maybe sooner. Or actually, I take that back. It could happen. It probably happens it will happen during the summer, I think. It's difficult to reach ports in Greenland up north now it's because of the ice. I think, but I might be wrong there. I haven't been there. But I think they will keep, if they do something like invading with force, I think that they will keep pushing this narrative. And then they will do this in spring or summer. So that would be late May or June, something like that, I think. Might be wrong again. I don't know what these people are thinking. I don't know who pays them. I don't know who is behind all of this, actually. Could be something as simple as the weapons industry lobbying. Well, we know they are lobbying, but they obviously want more wars. Maybe they are just lobbying for this because they want to sell more weapons, because they want to upgrade the American military to do Arctic warfare. Ian says Denmark let Greenland go to SHIT, only now they are interested. That's not true. If you look at all the money they are subsidizing Greenland with, that might have been true in the past. It's not true. It hasn't been like that for many, many years. And we can have, excuse my language, a pissing contest here concerning which military is best at Arctic warfare. My bet would be on a coalition of the Scandinavian countries, because that's what they do. That's what we do here. I can look out the window, it's 14 degrees below and everything's covered with deep snow now. Can you, how many of these American soldiers can even ski? Can you ski? Can you go cross-country skiing with a heavy backpack? It's like we can do this all day long. I'm just hoping that it will never happen, because it would break NATO. NATO could rebuild, but it would never be as strong as it is with the USA, of course. The USA would suffer, as I said, if they break loose from NATO. They would lose all their military bases in Europe. And they would lose all the deals concerning buying weapons from American arms manufacturers, as far as I understand it. So it would not be a good thing for the USA or for the American economy. Isolation is really good for an economy. Beth Wilton says, we the people don't want more wars. Trump campaign promoting no more wars. Yes, it did. So Grim Dawn says you would not be able to defend the major cities of the northern countries against massive missile strikes. I don't know where that came from. Neither will the USA. It's that's the sad reality now. If you send a supersonic missile towards LA, you're not going to be able to stop that, which is a horrible thing. Now, I believe in working together. I believe in trade across borders, because when you have trade across borders, it keeps the peace. It tends to keep the peace. It promotes. Well, it's the opposite of war, right? And isolationist policies seems to lead to a increased skepticism between countries and cultures, and that's not a good thing. We have superpowers now that can exterminate all humanity, so we kind of need to work together. And yeah, we can sit there on the internet and have a pissing contest about whose military is the best. In this case, in the Arctic, but at the end of the day, it's just innocent people getting killed. That's what we're talking about, and I don't want that. So yeah. And if you ask me, I think that we need to, as soon as possible, open up towards Russia. it can't be done now, but it's going to have to happen in the future. I think it's only realistic after Putin. Now he has to die first. Um, but that's the only way forward, you know. Um, yeah, Audrey says peace for our children and grandchildren. Yes. Um, yeah. So, what do you think? Well, you already told me what you think. But what do you think? um, I'm trying to, look at this as um, a bit of dumb people talking about stuff they don't know so much about. That I'm referring to all this tough man speak from the Trump administration. You have those people there, they're sitting there trying to act tough with their soft hands, and they don't have a fucking clue about what they're talking about. And I'm pretty sure that there are people in the American military just shaking their heads, when they hear this talk, and they are calling their mate in the, that maybe deals with training the U.S. Arctic soldiers. How many guys do we have now? Um, um, uh, how many snowmobiles? So, and they, uh, yeah. Galadriel, yes, the only way Greenland will be annexed is if the USA makes offers that Greenland, Denmark like too much to decline. I don't think there is money enough in the world for Denmark to accept that. Now, what could happen is, as I've said, Greenland has the ability, full freedom to have a referendum concerning independence. And if they do that and they become independent, and by the way, it seems like the reason they have not done it is that they are dependent on the money, quite a lot of it coming from Denmark every year. So, but if they become an independent nation, then it would be much easier, I believe, for them to be bribed into becoming a colony under the USA. Not saying that they will accept that, but I mean, if the USA pays $100,000 to each of the, is it 50,000 people living there? Maybe maybe they will accept that. Maybe. Gladio says it isn't necessarily going to be a money offer. Well, yeah, good point. It could be that they are offering, if you become part of the USA, our companies will move in, start drilling for oil and stuff, and you will have more jobs and, like that. They would destroy Greenland. Greenland has had problems, social problems with alcoholism. I know, at least in the past. I don't think that American culture brings good any qualities to native populations. You have the libertarian or liberal view on drugs, and you have all sorts of stuff, fast food and crap culture. Now, I'm not talking about American culture in in general, talking about pop culture, so that's not going to be good. So yeah, of course, not talking about, I love American culture, but not the culture that we see on TV here, of course. You know what I mean. um I can't pronounce your name there. It's in this. Is it called the Cyrillic alphabet? Why do you care about Denmark if you're Norwegian? Is it some kind of Viking empathy? No, we just like a good fight, you see. So, yeah, Saurs says, who wants to be a US citizen these days? You get taxed by the US no matter if you live in the country or not. You get treated like crap at the embassies and so on. Yeah. Uh, so, who supplies Greenland out of curiosity? Denmark does. So, okay. I think that's all for now. Let's see the number of subscribers dip below 115,000, because you have to unsubscribe when you get provoked by this Norwegian sitting here talking about stuff that concerns America. Yeah, underachiever. Yeah, that question was badly formulated. That's why I answered in such a stupid way. You threw up a little. Why do you care about Denmark? Answer, because, buddy. Yeah. I will even say that, you know what? We have this strange idea here that there is something called right and something called wrong. And we need to protect what is right and fight what is wrong. Have you heard about that concept before? Yeah. It's called morals and integrity. So let's see here. Yeah, I'll leave it at that. I'm hungry. I fell asleep last night so early. I didn't have dinner last night. So I'll go and have a large breakfast, I think. I'll just answer this one. What do Greenlanders want? Ask yourself that. Yes, I can. I don't have to ask myself. I can ask. Let's just now quickly look at that, because we can ask the Greenlanders. No, hold on. Where is it? I'll find it for you. I can find that here. You'll have to be patient. I'll just you'll have to be patient. I will find it. I will find it. It's right here. I saw it, in the news. No, I can't find it. I could find it. It takes too long. Okay, so all the political parties in government, so that's quite a number of them. It's a coalition. No, not in government. In the equivalent of Congress, I believe. they have written a statement to the administration in the USA. So that was in the news this morning here. And they say that they do not want to be part of the USA. It's a very simple message. So they write, we do not want to be part of the USA. We're not American. We're not Danish. We are Greenlanders. So that's what they think. So, okay. Cherokee Twilight is being a smartass here. Congress is not the people, Bjorn. Well, in a democratic system, they represent the people, right? And next election, yeah, you know what? I don't feel like explaining the democratic system to you. You can believe that the Greenlanders so much want to be part of the USA. You can keep believing that if you want to, but that's not the reality on Greenland. I promise you. Okay, I'll leave it at that. Have a nice day.